Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Coder Sujit, and in today's video you're gonna learn how we can create an image carousel effect using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So first of all, we have in all these files index.html and 4 images. So first we're going to start off with an exclamation mark and hit enter. We have a boilerplate. Now I'm going to rename the title to image carousel, and I'm going to link our CSS file. In the body we are going to create a div with a class of carousel. Inside that carousel we're going to have an image container div. I'm going to give this an ID of images. We're going to type in our image tags. In the source I have 4 images in the assets, so I'm gonna just paste them. In alternative I'm gonna type first image. You can skip this if you want. I'm gonna just do this pretty quickly. Under this image carousel I'm gonna create a button container for our navigation buttons, and inside them I'm gonna create 2 buttons with an ID of left and right, and I'm gonna give them a class of btn. And for the content inside the button I'm gonna just give them arrows, and for the end I'm gonna just link our JavaScript file. So let me go ahead and open live server. You can see our basic HTML and these 2 buttons here in the styling. So we're gonna reset, and I'm just gonna say box sizing border box. I'll not be resetting margin and padding. In the body, display flex direction column, align item center, and justify content center. For height 100 viewport height, and margin to 0, and a background color of, let's see what this color code is like for this example. I'm just gonna make it a little bluish. You can get this drop down if you use Visual Studio Code. I recommend that software. Now we're gonna give our images a basic width of 1200 pixels. It will be applied in all images. We're gonna edit the image container with a display flex so they all align vertically, and the transform of translate x 0. Nothing else for now. So you can see they are all aligned vertically. I'm gonna just give them 10 pixel more width and 10 pixel more height. You will soon know why I did that. Now the container is aligned in the center, but we still have a vertical scroll bar that we need to get rid of. All the images are overflowing from the carousel, so we just need to keep this overflow hidden, so there will be no vertical scroll bars. For border, we are gonna give them 5 pixel border and solid white. That is the reason why I give them 10 pixel more width and 10 pixel more height. We're gonna give them a box shadow of 2 pixel on x-axis, 2 pixel y, 5 pixel blur, and the RGB of black of 30% alpha. You can see a smooth shadow here. Now we're gonna style our button. We have given them a class of btn, font size 20 pixel, width of 40 pixel, height of 40 pixel, margin of 1 rem on all sides, a background color of that same color that we have used for the body background, and a color of white, border of 3 pixels solid white, and I'll just quickly add a border radius on all of them of 50% so they all became round buttons. And I'm gonna copy that box shadow and place it under the border, and after that I'm just gonna give this a cursor pointer so whenever you hover on our buttons the finger shows up. Now we are gonna give this a hover state, so type in the class, and in hover state I'm gonna give them a darker background, so I'm gonna use the Visual Studio Code features in here. You can see the colors are a little dark. Now I'm gonna give them a click effect. Whenever I click on them they will scale a little down, so head onto the active type and set transform scale 0.9. in my case I use scale as 0.9. you can use anything else that you like. You can see this nice looking minimalist click effect on the buttons. Now our basic UI styling is done. Now we're gonna head into our JavaScript. For the JavaScript we will need four things. First we will need the image container, not the carousel, the image container. Next we will need the images and our both buttons. So I'm going to quickly make a const, and I'm going to take images in this images variable. So I'm going to quickly type document.getElementById and ID of images. After that I'm going to just replicate them 4 times. Now I'll take the images tags, not the images container, the image tags. So I'm going to type query selector all to get a node list of all images. Now we won't be taking all images, where we'll only need only the image tag inside this images container. We can target that via a hash. Next up we will need those buttons. You can type query selector and giving a hash in the front, but I will go with getElementById. I'm gonna type left and right because those are the IDs I've given in the buttons, and for the const variable I'm going to type left button and right btn. Now we're going to create a variable of idx. You can name it anything and set a default value of 0, and we're going to create an interval which we're going to set interval run 2000 milliseconds, which equals 2 seconds. Set interval is a function that runs a function after every given amount of time. Now we're going to create our function run. Inside this run function I'm going to increment our index number, that variable that we have created. We are going to increment that with 1, so we can type that variable and a double plus. A double plus is a short form to increment a number by 1. And next up we are going to call a function change image. Now we will create this function change image, and we won't be taking any parameters. So first we're going to type an if statement, and we're going to check if the index number is greater than our image node list that we have, its length. If our index number is greater than the length of the images minus 1. The reason why I said the image.length minus 1 is because these images are a node list. All these images, there are 4 images, so those images are a node list, and node list basically starts with 0 instead of 1. In other case where the image.length basically starts with 1, so it will always be greater than one number of the actual node value, or you can say node length. So we have to minus it with 1 to get the last number of the original node value. And we're going to say if the index number is greater than the image length minus 1, we're going to set this back to 0. Else, if we're going to create another condition and we're going to check if the index number is less than 0, which means if it goes to minus 1 or minus 2, then we're going to set this index number to the last of our node list. So we will type image.length minus 1, which will basically target the last node value of our image node list. And finally, we're going to type our main styling, which will create the transition effect. We're going to say images dot style dot transform equals to, now give it a pair of backticks and type translate x and a set of parameters. Inside them we're going to type our expression, which will be minus index multiplied by, now we're going to multiply it with the image width that we have given, 12,000 pixels, and we will type the px outside our expression. Our images are moving, but there isn't in transition. So to create the transition, we have to go into our styling and we're going to target our image container. Inside we will say transition on the transform of 0.5 seconds is in and out. So I made a mistake. I forgot to put the S. I'll just quickly type an S in the transition. After typing the S, you can see our images are moving with the transition and it goes back to the first one after reaching the end. That is happening because of our logic. Now we need to make our buttons to work. So head back onto the JavaScript file. Now I'll first target the right button and add an event listener on that, and we're going to listen for a click, which will trigger an arrow function. Now in this arrow function, so what the right button will do is it will increment the index number and it's gonna call the function change image. Now you can see our button is working, but there is a little problem you can see, and that problem is the interval that we have set, it's running in the background. Every time it calls the run function, which changes the image after 2 seconds. So if we click and change, the changing will be done, but still after every 2 seconds the computer will automatically change the image. So that's why sometimes it goes faster and it's not listening. If we click, it's gonna reset the value to again to 2 seconds. So to fix that, we have to create another function which will be named reset interval. You can name anything you want. Inside that we will use an syntax which is clear interval, and we're going to pass in the interval variable that we have created, and under that we will basically reset the interval variable to the default, which means it's going to clear the interval and it's gonna reset the interval back to its original. Now by doing that, there is no problem with our coordination, because each time we click it resets the time to again to 2 seconds when our click ends. Now we can copy the right button and we can create the left button from it. We'll just simply rename the button, and instead of incrementing we will decrement it by minus minus, which means -1 from the original value. Now our image carousel works perfectly. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked and you learned something. Make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you next time with a nice tutorial.